Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, no it's not, it's July 13th, Monday. This is Owen Sound City Council. First of all, I'm going to go to Mr. Simmons, City Manager.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Council and all of the staff that have been involved in making our return to Council Chamber tonight for our first live in person since, I think, March now. And with that, staff, I know, worked extremely hard. As you notice, between every member of Council, you have hand sanitizer. We have sanitizing wipes here present. Everybody, although masks have not been fully mandated for tonight's meeting, masks are present, and I know staff also went through the extra effort to make sure from a pure spacing perspective, everybody is socially distanced to this 2-meter radius. And again, I just want to thank you all for helping to make this happen, and thank the staff members for really working hard to get us into this position technologically and from a physical setup.
Great, thank you very much. Before we go too much further, this past week our city lost the former mayor, Rick Beanie, who passed away on, I can't do that, I'm steaming them up, Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. On behalf of our council colleagues, staff, and residents of the city, I offered my condolences to his wife, Carrie Ann, family members, and friends. Mr. Beanie was appointed as mayor of the city in August 2001 and served until 2003. He was a city councillor from 1993 to 2001, and in 2000 he was the first city-elected county councillor. Mr. Beanie was dedicated to the growth of our city and was primarily responsible for bringing Newcom to town, which provided 200 jobs at the time that lasted more than 20 years. He will be remembered for his passion, his commitment to serving the residents of Owen Sound. Those of us around City Hall, well after maybe the public quit paying attention to what Mr. Beanie was doing, he sat for a number of years in our Committee of Adjustments and was such a leader on making the minor adjustments and things for applications for land development. He knew it so well and was such an asset to the city. We lowered our flags to half-mast on the day that he was buried last week, and our thoughts and prayers are with the family. I wonder if we want to do a moment of silence now, if we could. Yes. Thank you, everyone. We will miss Rick around here for sure. Next on our agenda is number 3 that I'm reporting out of the closed session. Just before I go there, I understand Rogers Cable is having problems with the broadcast tonight, and it may be working right now, and it may not last all night, but hopefully it does. We had a closed session that started at 3:45 p.m. tonight. During the closed session, Council reviewed minutes from the closed session meeting of Council held on June 29th. Council discussed one matter regarding a proposed or pending acquisition disposition of land by the municipality, and direction was provided to staff. Council also discussed 2 matters regarding labor relations or employee negotiations with a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instructions to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board respecting a city department, and direction was provided to staff. So we're down to number 4 on the agenda, looking for additional business. Staff, any additional business?
There's no additional business, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And from council? Seeing none. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Anyone? Go ahead, Carol.
Through your worship, I wish to make a transparency disclosure around item number 9A. I declare a non-disqualifying interest in the agenda item 9A, noted in accordance with Part 1 of the Code of Conduct, avoidance of conflicts of interest. The nature of my interest and the reason why the interest does not prevent me from making an impartial decision in this matter are as follows. I participate as a community volunteer in Owen Sound Waste Watchers trash pickup events. I do not represent any official position, and I am not reimbursed for this activity.
Good, thank you. I'm seeing no others. Number 6, looking for confirmation of council minutes. Councillor Thomas.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that the minutes of the closed session of the regular council meeting held on June 29th, 2020, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call the question in favor. That is carried. 6B.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 29th, 2020, as printed, be adopted.
And any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I believe you may need a new seconder. I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay, so if you want to pass it left or right. Go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hamley, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 29th, 2020, as printed, be adopted.
Great, thank you. Now, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 7.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that City Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
And all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're now in Committee of the Whole. First, we have a public meeting at 8A. I, first of all, am declaring that the public meeting is open, and we welcome Ms. Can. Oh, I guess I'm doing the next thing there, too. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representations in respect of the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available on the city's website and at the Planning Division, City Hall, during regular business hours. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the City of Owen Sound to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Owen Sound before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Owen Sound before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So there we go.
Through your worship, notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies, posted on the city's website, and published in the Sun-Times on June 19th, 2020. The comments that have been received were included in the agenda package. The notice of this public meeting required individuals wishing to speak at the meeting to contact the clerk by the end of the day on the Friday prior to the meeting. No one contacted me wishing to speak at this public meeting. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act and the Planning Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to myself, the city clerk. And if you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the City of Owen Sound on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the city clerk at Owen Sound.
Great, thank you. Now we welcome Ms. Can. I rushed it. Welcome, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of council, staff, and members of the public. Please, at any time, if you can't hear me, just let me know. So we're here this evening to hold a public meeting to gain public input for zoning bylaw amendment number 31 for the proposed relocation of the Inglenook Creche Child Care Center. So the subject lands are located just north of 13th Street West on 4th Avenue West. The lots have merged on title in the past, but have retained individual municipal addressing. 1331 4th Avenue West does contain the former place of worship, known as the St. Thomas Anglican Church, and 1321 4th Avenue West contains a detached dwelling, which was the former manse. Surrounding land uses are predominated by low-density residential neighborhoods west and south of the subject property. The Grey County Housing Parkway Apartments and Salvation Army Church are located on adjoining parcels to the east. The area subject to the rezoning includes the former place of worship property and the former manse property, which, as noted, are presently merged on title as one property. The subject lands are designated residential in the city's official plan. The residential designation permits a diverse range of residential uses as well as other uses that are complementary and provide services to residential uses such as schools, places of worship, and convenience-type commercial uses. Residential official plan policies permit local institutional uses subject to site-specific rezonings. The subject lands are zoned medium-density residential, or R4. The R4 zone permits a variety of residential forms and places of worship. Day nurseries or daycares are not permitted in the R4 zone. So the city has received a complete application for a zoning bylaw amendment, which we're here to discuss this evening, site plan approval, and consent to sever the lands. The three applications are being processed concurrently. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment are to permit a daycare or day nursery at 1331 4th Avenue West and to facilitate the severance of the residential dwelling at 1321. The effect of the application is to sever the lot containing the detached dwelling from the lot containing the former place of worship, and to permit the reuse of the vacant church as a daycare by the Inglenook Group. The development will include the expansion of the parking area on the daycare parcel and the establishment of a driveway and proper parking stall on the residential lot. So as noted, we have received a complete application for the zoning bylaw amendment. The process for the zoning bylaw amendment in accordance with the Planning Act includes, so far, the complete application submission on May 29th, letter of completeness on June 26th, notice of complete application in this public meeting on June 19th, technical report to council on June 29th, and a first submission comments going back to the applicant on June 30th. So as you can see, the application is actively in process. And then from here, we anticipate having a committee of adjustment hearing on July 21st. The site plan will be reviewed by the Accessibility Advisory Committee on July 27th. And then final review and consideration of public comments will inform from there recommendation report to council anticipated July 27th, and will be accompanied by the zoning bylaw. And then the zoning bylaw to authorize the site plan agreement as anticipated on August 24th. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Given that this is a public meeting, but it's hard for the public to get into the building, do we have plans? Just if you want to give a little more detail on that, perhaps, on how you're going to get submissions back in, or?
Certainly. So just for clarification, Your Worship, communications to the public or to enable the public to review the plans?
To enable the public to Oh, I turned that off. Sorry. I was thinking otherwise of people that might have been in the room and wanted to present. I just want to clarify if they're out there watching. It's maybe back to Ms. Bloomfield, just to over-clarify that, but go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Individuals were invited to participate in this public meeting by signing up by the Friday prior to this meeting. And just to notify us that they were coming so we could go over the protocols with them, and we had nobody requesting to make comment. But I will note that the applicant is in attendance this evening if you do have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would also note that all the information on the proposed applications are on the city's website as well. They're available here at the planning counter, and that's open to the public, and any member of the public is able to still write a letter or send an email at this time.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to maybe over-emphasize that. Councillor Tamming, go ahead.
Ms. Can, thank you. Ms. Can, can you tell us when your department was first asked by the nursery or the daycare to consider this proposal?
Through you, Your Worship, if my memory serves, which it may not, I'm happy to get you some more concrete details, but we did proceed through pre-consultation in the late winter, early spring, and then sort of waited on a formal application, which came in.
So possibly bylaw by the end of August, correct?
That's correct.
I hope the media reports on this sort of thing too as being incredibly fast or responsive planning. There seems to be a perception in some circles that sometimes planning takes a while here. I have not experienced that as a council, and I think this is a phenomenal rate of speed. Obviously, they'd like to be teed up as soon as they can in the fall, and I think your responsiveness is phenomenal as a department. I just want that noted.
Great, thank you. Others? Seeing none. So with that, I'm now declaring that the public meeting is closed. Yes. Thank you. So next at number 9, we will have a deputation from Souza Sarnecki, from an Owen Sound resident with regard to drains to waterways. And I think we're just trying to get the podium cleaned and ready. It's done. Someone bringing her in.
Hello?
Hi.
Now. All right. Oh, there it is. Okay. My name's Souza Sarnecki. I'm a resident of Owen Sound. I live on 2nd Avenue West. And as a volunteer with the Owen Sound Waste Watchers, I've participated in a number of their litter pickup events. Now, this pickup is what I picked up on June 13th. In 3 blocks, one side of 3 blocks of 2nd Avenue West between 7th Street and 10th Street. And in that, there are a lot of cigarette butts. So this is 250 cigarette butts. These were picked up by Ann Finley Stewart. And this is the litter she picked up out of the water at the harbor. So this, if I hadn't picked that up, all those items would go into the storm drains. The storm drain water is not treated, and so that's why I thought we needed to do something. Now, okay, I'm proposing to stencil at the storm drains, or get permission to stencil at the storm drains with a message alerting people that all the water doesn't go to the sewage treatment plant, it just goes straight into the lake. Now, in that 3 blocks, I picked up 877 cigarette butts. And in 2 hours, 8 people picked up 2,500 cigarette butts in the city, just in the downtown area, and they totaled 3,615 items, which all would have gone, most of them would have gone into the storm drains. So what I can't do that. Okay. I hate doing this. So the water entering the storm drains goes directly into the harbor, and everything that gets washed into the drains ends up in the lake. Now, cigarette butts are toxic, and they are not biodegradable. I think people think they are, but they are not. So there are serious litter and toxic waste problems. Cigarette filters are made of cellulose acetate, which is not biodegradable. It is photodegradable, but it only breaks down into small particles. It does not disappear. So that anything that goes into the lake pretty much stays in the lake until major water runoff runs it off into another body of water. Now, all the butts that I picked up were not necessarily going to go into the gutter, but if half of them did, that would be from 3 blocks, one half of the street, 7,500 cigarette butts a year. Adds up to a tremendous quantity. Worldwide, 4.5 trillion cigarettes are discarded every year. And that's just the cigarette butts. So, part of a thing I think people don't realize about this, so I think we need awareness. And in other communities, they have stenciled on at the storm drains, no dumping, drains to ocean, drains to lake, drains to harbor. Now, Owen Sound did have some stenciling done in the city. It was done by REACH, and it was done through the Yellowfish program run by Trout Unlimited Canada, and they provided the stencils, and REACH did the stenciling. REACH also had to provide the paint. But the problem with this is it says rainwater only. It doesn't say what happens to that once it's in the drain. You could still assume that it's treated. So what I would like to do, and I was thinking about being the stenciling fairy and going out until somebody told me I should ask permission. So I'd like to stencil a warning at the storm drains that says no dumping, drains to waterway or harbor or lake. So I'm asking for the city's assistance to provide the paint to use with the stencils so it's appropriate and approved by Public Works or whichever department. Assist in determining which storm drains would best benefit from stenciling. For the previous rainwater only, they were given a map of drains. And I'd like them to store the stencils for future use. I propose to purchase the stencils myself because this is my project. And if you agree, if you give me permission, I will engage with REACH again, who are interested, Owen Sound Water Watchers, Owen Sound Waste Watchers, and others to assist with the stenciling. There are other environmental groups in the city who I think would be interested. It could go to the schools. The Yellowfish Road, they have information as well, and they do deal with schools and community groups, families, block parties, So, and confer with the city on the actual design of the stencil. There are commercial stencils available, but we can also have custom ones. And the location to be painted and paint. And after that, if you approve it, we'll get to work. So, that's it.
Great, thank you very much. I see Councillor Hamley's hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you for doing this, Mrs. Sarnecki. I just had a question maybe for the Director of Operations. You think that this is something that we can do?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Your Worship. It's not my first rodeo with this type of program. Trout Unlimited, we were doing this back in 2002 in Yellowknife. Every year we'd actually paint the fish stencils around the catch basins just to inform people. It does turn out to be a good program because it brings their attention to the storm drainage system. And those who are conscientious, they take extra care to make sure they pick up their litter and stuff doesn't end up down the drain. And for those who aren't and purposely do pour deleterious material down the drain, it helps notify the rest of our residents that they're part of the watchdogs, part of the success of this program, would help notify us if someone does pour some stuff down the drain that shouldn't be down there. So this is something that we can do, and we can work with the group and figure things out to make sure it's done safely. And this is something that was done in the past, and it was done safely, so.
Thank you.
Yep. So with that, Your Worship, I would move that City Council direct city staff to work with interested community organizations to implement a storm drain stenciling program.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, discussion, councillors? Councillor Thomas, go ahead.
I'd just like to thank Ms. Sarnecki for the presentation. Back in about 1990, there was a similar program in Owen Sound carried out through the schools where fish were stenciled on all of the stormwater drains. So this is not anything new, even though in Sound, but it's been a long time since it's been done, and I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, call the question. All in favor? That is carried. And again, just as Ms. Sarnecki's just left, but we thank her for that presentation. It's stunning people that will put certain things into the garbage. How cigarette butts just don't seem to be one of them. We've put up ashtrays at different places on posts, and we'll see cigarette butts around them, and we don't really understand what the thinking is, but we appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want one other point. I was asked about publicizing it. Now, I know it's been on the House.
Great, thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much.
So next, we have public question period. Are we aware of any questions that were sent in? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did receive a couple of questions by the noon deadline that is noon today. Through Your Worship, Rebecca Nisley, an Owen Sound resident, has two questions that I will read on her behalf. The first is, when will the 6-passenger restrictions on city buses be lifted? And the second question is, why can't people use city buses as usual while wearing a mask?
Mr. Kafalis has just left the room. You know what? He's the guy that's going to have to answer that. Dennis? Sorry. Yeah.
Question about the buses?
Do you already know the questions? Go ahead, Ms. Bloomfield.
Through Your Worship, I'll just read them again. The first is, when will the 6-passenger restrictions on city buses be lifted? And the second is, why can't people use city buses as usual while wearing a mask?
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We gave it some thought today when we saw it. We reached out to Orangeville, who were under the same restrictions as we are currently, that we have currently in place in terms of the number of riders on the bus. They're looking at possibly making the changes come September. Guelph is another big transit provider. They lifted the restrictions, I believe, towards the end of June. Don't hold me to that date, but it was somewhere around there, beginning of July. But then again, their health unit actually mandated the use of masks on the bus when riding transit. I don't think we're there yet. We'll still explore the options. Right now, we're not getting, receiving very few complaints about the limited numbers of riders on the bus, and it appears that we are servicing our general public to an acceptable level. Again, come September, this might change depending on what goes on with the schools. So I think from now, between now and the next 6 weeks, we'll be looking at possibly lifting that, but we still have to explore the possibilities and the impacts of mandating masks on the bus. And who will police that when it does occur? It's not something that we can actually put on the drivers. We're not asking drivers to police. You know, we don't want them to get any confrontation with potential riders. It's not their job. Their job is to drive the bus and make sure the fares are collected, and as such, it's a very tricky slope. So at this time, we're not anticipating happening in the near future, but we are exploring the possibility of a time when we may lift the limited number of riders on a bus. And before doing so, it'll come back to council.
Great, thank you. If I can add a question to that, maybe. If somebody is unable to get onto the bus because there isn't enough capacity, what's their alternative? Cab?
Cab, what we tell people too is, you know, for instance, if you have to be at work and you're for 1 o'clock, well, don't wait, don't anticipate the bus will be the, you know, the bus that you usually take, anticipate it might be full, so try and take a bus from an earlier time. We let people know when the peak times are, so if you're going to do your day-to-day business, go at non-peak times, because then you're sure to make sure you'll ensure that there is enough available space on the bus for you to be able to make your trip. There is one bus, the East Bayshore bus, which we know is the heaviest use, and there is issues with rider, like that, the one that will fill up before the rest will. But again, you've received that this is the only complaint we received regarding this matter.
Great, thank you. Keep moving here. Number 11 on our agenda, we have no correspondence for which we need to consider. We're down to number 12A, which is a report from the city manager with regard to city actions decisions implemented in COVID-19. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, pleased to bring this report to yourself and members of council. A few items I wanted to make note within the report itself. City Hall did reopen to the public this past Monday, July 6th. Overall foot traffic has been light, but it's encouraging to see more than, staff have said, more than 80% of the people coming to City Hall for services have been wearing a mask. So without Dr. Ara or the Grey Bruce Health Unit reporting or mandating anything, it seems like the public already has that in mind. We're very appreciative of the public coming and wearing masks. There were no concerns expressed by those that did come to City Hall. The signage seems to be working very well in the main lobby area, and they've also observed and made note and have been following the floor decals and signage also on entry and exit points. So overall, for the first week, we're very pleased with where City Hall is in its reopening. Secondly, the tourism pop-up visitor services that we've spoken about, we are just days away from it probably having a soft opening just here across the street on 8th Avenue East, and a more formal opening days after that. So we're excited to get that going. It's my understanding from our Director of Community Services that merchandise and other materials have come in. Signage, we hope, could be up as early as this Wednesday. So again, another great service for those coming into the city, and a great location here close to the City Hall. It allows our City Hall to use infrastructure in place such as Wi-Fi, et cetera, for the pop-up location. And again, as with all of the COVID time since March, staff have been doing an excellent job in taking on some maintenance and operation issues at some of our community centers, Julie MacArthur Regional Rec Center and the Bayshore Community Center. They've been taking on larger projects, stripping floors, et cetera. Backup generators for the city server was installed, new bollard lighting was completed. So those type of operations sometimes take more time as you're trying to fit in normal operations and people movement around those locations. The maintenance staff has done an excellent job in making that list, getting caught up, and actually moving ahead with those maintenance items. Lastly, or second last, I'd like to also talk about the noise bylaw relief for construction. I think staff has been very open to how can we spur the economy forward? What items can we help when the sectors come forward and need help? Previously, Council, you endorsed the sidewalk patios. That has been going extremely well in the city. I know the other sector that was extremely hard hit, as we're all, but the construction industry. Many of the laborers and professionals and tradespeople are all hourly paid. So if they aren't working due to weather or some other reason, then they don't have a paycheck. And with COVID, same thing. They were shut down for weeks at a time. So we're asking that in this report, you approve an exemption to the noise bylaw, temporary exemption to the noise bylaw for Saturdays and holidays between now and November 1st that allows construction to take place on Saturdays and holidays. I think there's only two holidays in question, really, Labor Day and the civic holiday in August, but on Saturdays especially, for those people in that industry to make up time lost and also to help spur our growth and development in the construction industry in general. A lot of projects were put on hold that are now trying to be completed. So with that, we ask for that relief for the construction industry. And I guess lastly and most importantly, I know you know this, but for the citizens of Owen Sound and our businesses, our dedicated staff here at City Hall, they have just done a tremendous job and continue to do so. If we could call out each member of our staff, we would do that. Everybody here has really sort of expressed that can-do attitude for how do we make things happen, how do we make things work for everybody here. I've named a few here that have really reached and set a new standard of excellence for those, have been leaders throughout within their various teams, whether it's our clerks here, Brianna Bloomfield, who I'll call out since she's right in front of me, or Amy Can, who was here previously on the planning item. They've all had taken on leadership roles that were never expected 3 or 4 months ago, and have really helped to direct staff and move us through and steer us through this COVID-19 pandemic, getting us back to opening and getting us to where we are tonight with our first in-person council meeting. With that, I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Simmons, for those comments. I'd be happy to move the recommendation.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 12B is a verbal report from Mr. Kafalis with regard to 10th Street Bridge.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through Your Worship, this is just a brief verbal update of where we stand to date. Come the next meeting, we'll be doing a more robust staff report, a written report, and hopefully I'll be able to do a bit of a presentation with some pictures. But as we speak, the abutment and the retaining walls on the west side have been constructed. Backfilling is occurring. We poured the east abutment last Wednesday. It started about 3 a.m. And the reason they did that is because of the heat. You can only allow the concrete to get so hot. We had to put retarders in the concrete. Actually had to try and cool the stone down to make sure we didn't achieve the temperatures that would have an impact on the quality of the concrete. So that was a significantly long pour, but and it occurred and it was successful. So that was poured of last Wednesday. We started removing forms this week. We're looking to start working on the retaining wall on the east side. Once that's done, they'll look at starting to pull the sheet piles from the river and allow the water to start its normal course again. And the next big milestone will be August 4th, when we expect the arrival of the girders and the installation start on the girders. And that's what we want to tie my next presentation in just after that. Then we'll do a video to show that next future milestone, and that is key. Because right now we've received the most recent schedule, and it looks like the date for having that paved is beginning of December, end of November. So a little ahead of schedule. I mean, fingers crossed. And if they can maintain that, then it's looking very good in terms of the schedule. So the next big date will be August 4th, and if the girders are here, then we know that we are on their schedule based on what they presented last week. In terms of the budget's still looking good. We are, tearing into the contingency, and I'll have a better update exactly where we stand by the next presentation and staff report, but we're still on budget as well.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary, do you want to move that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move receipt of that verbal report.
There we go. Now, any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the receipt of the verbal update. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Dennis. 12C is the Manager of Public Works with regard to water, wastewater financial plan. I think Matt is here to present that. He is. Welcome, Mr. Prentice.
Evening, Your Worship, members of council, senior management. It's a little bit, you try to follow it on the screen out there, but there's a time lapse. So I'm watching the council from 5 minutes ago, trying to figure out when I'm going to show up.
Just think
it's like a time machine when you walk through that door.
You'll be able to go back out and watch yourself.
Okay. So I'm bringing to you a brief report on the water financial plan that we're supposed to submit to the Ministry of Housing, and I'll go with the background on this. The financial plan as it's submitted represents one of the key elements of the municipal requirement to obtain the drinking water license. It has to be renewed every 5 years. In addition, you need to have a drinking water works permit. Your accreditation has to be up to date, which it is for a quality management system, and you need a valid permit to take water, and we just got that renewed this year. So this is the last piece of the pie, as it were, to resubmit for our drinking water license. The financial plans are supposed to be for a period of at least 6 years, but they do encourage longer planning horizons. 10 years is what a lot of municipalities do use, and that's what we selected. And the plan is mandatory for water, but also they do encourage rate studies and financial planning for wastewater as well. So the rate study's already been to council. That was for water and wastewater. You'll notice the attached financial plan for this report is only for water, because that is the only thing you have to submit for your drinking water license. There's no wastewater operator's license system yet. So the plan's considered a living document. Mandatory reviews have to be done every 5 years, though, even if it's a 10-year time frame. And the last piece of the pie to submit for our application is a resolution of council approving the financial plan, which is what we seek tonight. So the financial plans must be in a prescribed format, and that's been done by our consultant. And the data and the analysis used in the preparation of this financial plan is the same that was used in the 2 other studies by the same consultant, the water and wastewater rate study and the development charges study, which have already been presented to council. So there is consistency between those. In general terms, the application for the drinking water license renewal has the financial plan included, so that the city can take the required steps to ensure that the financial sustainability of the system. That's part of the actual wording in the resolution, and that wording does have to be there for regulatory reasons. And that's basically it. Are there any questions about the report?
Great, thank you. Questions? Someone want to move the report? Councillor Gregg?
I'd move the recommendation in the report. I don't have any questions on it. Thanks. I know councils, I think we started working on this probably last December. So it's a while before you get to this point, so I'm happy to move that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Matt. See, if you rush right out there, it's like Back to the Future.
Yes. I'll take the rest of the day off, though, if that's
and if you find any mistakes in your presentation, you can come back in and fix them.
I can, actually. It's
perfect. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Mr. Kafalis, 12D is a report on Billy Bishop Airport.
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship, the management contract for the airport has come to an end. Usually in the past, not in the past, I think there is a clause that allows us to extend it for 3 years. However, we want to explore possibilities with the airport. As such, we're recommending or seeking council's direction to direct yourself and the city clerk and to execute the necessary documents to enter to a 1-year contract for the management of the airport with Phoenix Airport Management Group and Corporation.
Great, thank you. Marion, go ahead. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I will move the recommendation contained in the report.
Good, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 12E is a report from Ms. Bloomfield, I guess. Jamie.
Thank
with
you.
regard to Bylaw Enforcement Officer.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm pleased to announce the hiring of Madison McNeil as our new bylaw officer. The resolution in the report is to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to appoint Ms. McNeil as a bylaw enforcement officer and a property standards officer for the city.
Thank you. Someone want to move that? Councillor Dodd?
Your Worship, I'd move the recommendation.
Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, All in favor? That is carried. 12F is an encroachment application.
Thank you, Your Worship. The city received an application for an encroachment agreement respecting property located at 225 12th Street West. The application is for a garage that encroaches onto the adjacent unimproved city laneway. The encroachments do not affect the integrity of the main building on the property and therefore meet the requirements of an agreement with a 6-month notice provision, meaning that the encroachments may continue provided that the city may request their removal on 6 months' notice to the owner. The application was circulated to various city departments, none of which had any concerns about the application. Staff have recommended an additional clause be included that affirms the city will not be liable for any damage related to trees or other environmental conditions within the municipal lane. The recommendation in the report is for City Council to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to execute an encroachment agreement with Leah Graytrex and Owen Donay respecting the encroachment of a garage onto the adjacent unimproved city laneway.
Thank you. Councillor Kepke?
Thank you, Worship. I will move the motion. However, I have a question regarding the termination or terminology of unopened road allowance and unimproved road allowance. What's the difference?
I might turn to Dennis on this one if he's got a definition.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question is, what is the difference between an unimproved road allowance and an unopened road allowance?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm not sure I have the answer to it, but
Probably means the same thing, doesn't it?
I would say. But I can get a better definition for you and email it to all city council.
So Councillor Kepke has moved that. Any other questions, discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 12G, verbal update from Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing on the County of Grey of a health unit report. As of July 11th, 2020, we had 0 cases, only 1 active case, 0 cases currently hospitalized, 0 deaths, and 0 facilities in an outbreak. Medical Officer of Health order with respect to reducing risk of COVID-19 and wearing masks in indoor public spaces of commercial establishments is ready to be issued. The order will be implemented in conjunction with the provincial Stage 3 reopening. Sufficient time will be provided for affected parties to be adequately prepared. The order is devised to increase awareness and encourage the use of masks. Enforcement is not desired. The list of best practices are as follows. Maintain physical distancing of 2 meters amongst all employees and clients. Ensure the availability of alcohol-based hand sanitizer at all entrances and exits. Post appropriate visible signage indicating that face coverings are required at all entrances. Use best efforts to restrict persons from entering the premises without a mask. Strong recommendations to all non-commercial organizations in Green Bruce counties to implement the same actions stated in the order, including municipalities. Ongoing actions taken by the Grey Bruce Health Unit. Receive and review reopening plans for locations closed due to COVID-19, including inspections as required. The Health Unit Infectious Disease Team continue with case and contact management, reporting, and responding to COVID-19 related calls. Contact tracing exceeds provincial targets with 100% of all cases contacted within 24 hours. And the Grey Bruce Health Unit team continue to ensure essential public health activities not related to COVID-19. And with that, Your Worship, I would move receipt of that report.
Good. Thank you. Any questions for Deputy Mayor O'Leary? Seeing none, I'll call the question. So this is to approve receipt of that verbal report. All in favor? That is carried. We're down to 13 already, which is the consent agenda.
Through your worship, on the consent agenda this evening is minutes for receipt from the Library Board and the DIA Board. Several businesses have received their final approvals, including Sunbelt Rentals of Canada at 1795 23rd Street East, Home Life Bayside Realty, which relocated to 797 9th Ave East, Love Day Counseling at 946 3rd Ave East, Cut Master, located at Heritage Place Mall, Stephanie Ranger, Personal Assistant at 1565 16th Street East, and Edward Jones, a stockbroker, is located at 986 2nd Ave East. Lastly, there is the information package. A full listing is available at 13D.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas?
Moved by myself that City Council receives items 13A to 13C on the consent agenda dated July 13th, 2020.
I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. If we can go back to 13A, which is a report from the public library. Anything to report?
Not much to report there, Your Worship. It was a meeting spent almost entirely planning for the reopening of the library, which is currently underway.
Good. Thank you. Downtown improvement area?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Minutes from the June 10th meeting, 2020, we had a presentation from Manager of Community Development and Marketing, Brent Fisher, regarding support during COVID-19. He highlighted steps taken by the city to support the residents of Owen Sound, including waiving the penalty and interest on property tax, relaxed waste management fees, and relaxed transit fares on public transit. The city took to social media to promote businesses in Owen Sound that remained open during COVID, and worked closely with the County of Grey to ensure that information was provided to businesses and residents in a timely and efficient manner. Mr. Fisher provided an overview of the Economic and Development Task Force headed by the County of Grey, adding that by working together with Grey County, the DIA, and the City of Owen Sound, that all can continue to grow and thrive. Business support is available through the Public Health Team, the Business Enterprise Center, federal and provincial programs, webinars, and the Patio and Street Furniture Guide. And speaking of patios, I'd like to thank all staff for acting quickly on adding patios in the downtown core, as well as the expansion of patios in other areas of the city. That's my report, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. Any questions out of that? Seeing none. Down to number 14 on the agenda, we have no committee minutes. We will have our first committee meeting, I think, this week being corporate services? Community services. So we'll get back into it. Matters postponed, we have none. Motions for which notice was previously given. I'll pass the chair to Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Motion presented by Mayor Boddy at the June 29th, 2020 regular council meeting. Your Worship, go ahead.
I'll do it verbally. As we know, there's been concern expressed several times. Certainly Councillor Tamming has raised it a few times with frustration with regard to our police budget. When you go back, I think Councillor Dodd asked for the police budget report to come early so we could have a discussion on it. We have an agreement, protocol agreement between council and the Owen Sound Police Board to have discussions, to have annual meetings, and to be able to have discussions and open dialogue about the budget and about policing going forward. Certainly there is a statement made by the John Thompson, the chair of the police board, that recognized that changes in policing is coming and needs to come. And it was very much acknowledging that they're interested in having that discussion. We've been talking about having that discussion, but we seem to not move it forward the way we need to. So with that, I wish to bring a motion that the city manager prepare terms of reference to create a transformational task force that will inform council how to best modernize the structure and service delivery options of the Owen Sound Police Services, which will lead to delivering police services more efficiently and effectively to the citizens of Owen Sound. So that's my motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do we have any questions or discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Thank you, and that's carried.
Moved by myself that the Committee of the Whole rise and report. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodd. This will help. That the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations, and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Are there any notices of motion to be heard at the next meeting? Seeing none. Bylaws?
Through you, Your Worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to establish the city's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, a bylaw to execute an easement agreement with Alexandra Burns and Bruce Hall for lands described as RP 16R 7825 Part 2, a bylaw to execute a license agreement with Bruce Hall for a community garden on lands described as RP 16R 7825 Part 2. A bylaw to execute a lease and management agreement with Charles Bowie for the operation of the west and east side boat launches. A bylaw to amend the appointed officers bylaw to appoint a bylaw enforcement officer and a property standards officer. A bylaw to adopt a water financial plan. And lastly, a bylaw to authorize the borrowing upon amortizing debentures towards the cost of City Hall renovation and HP electrical upgrade.
Councillor Thomas?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that bylaw numbers 2020-73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, and 80 be passed and enacted.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. So that completes our business for tonight. It is 7:57. We're completed for the night. Thank you.